you can see kind of, it's not on your test, but it's on the answer key. And by the way, this answer key is available under doc sharing as of just this morning. So the three numbers are the usual numbers from left to right. You have the multiple choice, vocabulary, and short answer. Within the multiple choice, there were three, and I said this during review, there were three multiple choice questions that I didn't think I emphasized in my lecture notes. So they were extra. So actually there were 25 possible with regard to multiple choice, and I took it out of 22. Similarly, there was one, and it was the last one on your vocab, where I asked if you could tell me the potato moons around Mars. Okay, that was also worth 2 extra credit points. And then on the last page, there were, must have been 7 short answer questions, each worth 3 apiece. So we'll just kind of take a look at these quickly. The first one was about that spaghetti sauce thing, the Valles Marineris. You had to know it was on Mars and that it was a canyon, not a plane. So the best answer there is C. Question 2, terrestrial world that has a strong magnetic field. And the best one up there is E, the best answer. We said, I think anyway, Mars has a wimpy one. Question 3 was about the collapsing solar nebula. And we said that it heated up, and actually this goes back to something we talked about in chapter 4, that as it shrunk, as it collapsed, actually it was converting potential gravitational energy into thermal energy. So the best answer there is D. Question 4, according to our theory of the way our solar system formed, the fact that it's like kind of like a frisbee actually is the conservation of angular momentum. So A is the best answer there. Question 5, Jupiter is denser than Saturn, and the best answer there is that Jupiter's got all that extra mass and it kind of squishes. It's like the pillow thing. Okay, so the best answer there is D. Question 6, what makes Neptune and Uranus? So that's C. Question 7, which of these list from lowest energy to highest energy? So best answer there is D, radio, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. Gamma rays, just like, bless you, just like that song goes. That crazy physics teacher. Question 8, which of these is furthest from the sun? And you know it's a comet, so your choices are basically kind of the Kuiper Belt or the Oort cloud. And actually chapter 9 on Friday, we talked more about that. So the Oort cloud, actually objects are farther than the Kuiper Belt. So C is the best answer there. Question 9, in order for a planet to have a magnetosphere or a magnetic field, it needs to, D, have both liquid near its core, and it needs to have a reasonably fast rotation. Question 10, how are wavelength, frequency, and energy related? So the best answer there is C. The longer the wavelength means it's a lower frequency, and that happens to correspond with lower energies. Question 11, we talked about the 4 components that made up the solar nebula, and in order of most abundant to least abundant, the best answer there is A. So we had the light gases, the compounds containing hydrogen, and then if you're like me, I always get is it rocks more or metals more or rocks? I better hurry. There's my 10% battery life. And there were more rocks and then metals is the least abundant of the 4. The reason we see anything is because light is scattering off of that object, so the best answer there is D. So 13 actually was an extra credit point. So why is Mars red? And it's because of iron oxide. Its surface rocks were rusted from oxygen. The 14, which of the following show evidence of an ancient riverbed? And all of those up there, the only one we talked about in class is B, Mars. And I guess the thing about Venus is it's actually had more active plate tectonics than Mars has. So it could have resurfaced itself, but there's no evidence that we talked about in class that looks like there was once flowing water. So question 15, if we look at a gold atom, and they go ahead and they tell you in that question that every gold atom must have, go on up, it's pausing. There it goes. Every gold atom must have 79 protons in its center, because of course that kind of sets what element it is. And they go ahead and say that this particular atom of gold has 118 neutrons. And I wanted you to tell me the atomic number and the atomic mass number. The number of protons, 79, is the atomic number, and you get the mass number by adding 79 plus the number of neutrons, 118. So the best answer there up there is C, 79 for the atomic number and 197 for the mass number. Question 16, when an electron goes from a higher energy to a lower energy, a certain amount of energy will be emitted in the form of a photon of energy. So at a specific frequency. So D is the best answer there. 17, actually this is related to the last page too. Mercury has these things we call scarps. Okay, that's what it's talking about in 17. And D, that they were probably formed when it cooled. So, what mechanism is responsible for making that closest Galilean moon of Jupiter be so volcanically active? And that's flexing the tidal forces of gravity. Okay, so that's the best answer there is C. 19, another one that I think hit real hard in my notes. With regard to meteorites, those space rocks that survive Earth's passage through Earth's atmosphere, we can date those, and they are dating our solar system about 4.6 billion years old. Question 20, which of the following is in the origin of almost all of the large moons around the Jovian planets? Okay, the best answer there is C, that they were formed as basically they had that picture of kind of the disk of the accretion disk around the sun and kind of forming the planets around the sun, and then around the gaseous planets they had their own little mini accretion disk. That's what this is talking about. So the best answer is that those moons, the Galilean moons and those cool moons around those gaseous planets were formed because they had their own mini accretion disk. Question 21, so C is the best answer. Question 21, which of these describe convection? A is the best answer there. Warm material expands, it rises, it cools down, and then it sinks. Right. 22, when we talk about the lithosphere, we are talking about D, the rigid rocky material of the crust in the uppermost portion of the mantle. Question 23, which of these planets have rings? And of course, A through D are Jovian planets or gaseous planets, so they all do. E is the best answer there. Question 24, which of these is not a reason for putting a telescope to orbit the Earth? And we've talked about this. And although they get just a tiny bit closer to the object they're looking at, that's not why we do that. It's to keep scientists employed. Question 25, Earth's plates move because of convection cells in the liquid mantle. B is the best answer there. Question 26, the terrestrial planet cores contain mostly metal because of planetary differentiation. So 26E is kind of describing planetary differentiation. The denser things sink. 27, which of the following does not have a major effect on planetary surfaces, erosion and that sort of thing? And the best answer there is B. B does not resurface anything, magnetism. Question 28, another one that was worth extra credit, and I told you in our review session, that although we really kind of understand pretty well the topography, the terrain of the surface of Venus, we can't see it. And so we can map it by using a spacecraft orbiting Venus and using radar. Question 29, this was one where basically they said a library sample of a stationary object that's will give us a spectral line at 121.6 nanometers. And then they say we're looking at a space object that is giving us a corresponding spectral line, but it is at a wavelength of 121.8 nanometers. Okay, so this was that kind of the last, near the end of that chapter when I kind of talked about Doppler effect. So the fact that it's 0.2 nanometers longer means that we have a redshift occurring. So if we have a redshift occurring, then A, the star is moving away from us. I know, it's a lot to think about, but it was only worth 1 point. Question 30, which of these best describe the composition of Saturn's rings? And they are so reflective because they have a lot of actually ice. Just a couple more with regard to multiple choice. 31, frequency is A good way to describe it is the number of peaks that pass any point in given 1 second. I just think that's amazing, 1001, and to think of the number of cycles for those higher energies. Question 32, based on our theory of Earth forming, we think that our water came from comets. Actually, they were kind of crossing the line back and forth between the frost line, that chaotic time we talked about early in our solar system. E is the best answer there. So you can see the fill in the blank. Okay, and these are each worth 2 points apiece now. It's possible to get partial credit. So I was after continuous spectrum or continuum as basically a spectra that has no lines. And we can use that to actually create what we call those black body radiation curves and get a fix on temperature. Question 34, solar nebula is the thing that actually our solar system was born out of. Question 35, I was after Calorus Basin is that impact event that we know, or that was, it's a site that was created on Mercury by an impact early on. Okay. Question 36, magnetosphere or magnetic field, I take either one. Talking about the Earth's protective shield that protects us from some of the large part of the sun's harmful particles. Question 37, Triton is the moon we talked about that orbits Neptune, although Neptune has more than just Triton, but Triton resembles a cantaloupe. Question 38, I was after focal point as what you can put on ants and kill them, but actually both types of telescopes you talk about on the last page actually bring their light to this point. Question 39, accretion is the term we use to talk about forming planets over time in the disk around the sun and around the planets, the make little moons. I was after 40 greenhouse gases as present in any planet's atmosphere to kind of be a blanket. A couple of students put clouds. And teaching meteorology, I was kind of like, oh, okay. So it gave you 1 out of 2 for that one. Question 41, Galilean moons, of course, orbit Jupiter, jumping. 42, angular resolution was what I was after as the aspect of a telescope that's talking about the smallest angle of detail that can be observed. 43, I was after frost line that separates the temperature zones. The inner is where the metals and rock can condense. And then beyond the frost line, not only metals and rock, but also those hydrogen-containing compounds can also condense. The last one, like I said, was worth 2 extra points. So if you either told me Phobos or Deimos, and you didn't have to spell it right, because I'm not sure I did, that either one of those moons that orbit Mars, that would be great. 3 points apiece, so, there you go. A lot of neat drawings for 45. I also teach this class online, and online they don't have they can't draw, so sometimes you guys got it easier. So I was after kind of, with the first one, the structure of an atom, of course, the 3 particles, and I also wanted you to kind of tell me where they were. So in the nucleus, we have the protons and the neutrons, and outside the nucleus, we have the moving electrons. Question 46, I wanted you to say something about the 2 types of telescopes, kind of compare and contrast. And of course, reflecting telescopes use mirrors, refracting telescopes use lenses. That's a difference. And then this thing that they have in same, actually, I just kind of brought in, they both gather light back to a focal point. Oh, and I also said, yeah, I think that's all I did say. Question 47, I wanted you to just say something about the 2 types of planets, and you can kind of see, I put the terrestrial planets are rocky, they're generally smaller, and they're closer to the sun or their star. And then the gaseous or Jovian planets, their surface is gaseous. They have a rocky pit, if you want to go that far. They're larger, and they're actually formed beyond the frost line. Question 48, the 2 exceptions that you maybe could have brought in, I was after Earth's large moon. It's kind of like, really? How did Earth get such a large moon? And of course, we talked about what's called the collision ejection formation, the theory of the formation of our moon. And so that was kind of part of this chaos I'm trying to talk about in 48. The other thing is similarly with regard to the chaos was Uranus's axis of rotation is tilted. And then 49, scarps basically are an indication of Mercury's cooling. And 50, I kind of put the steps 1, 2, and 3. Why doesn't Mars have a substantial atmosphere? Because it used to have an atmosphere if it had running water. When I said running water, it's like it had plumbing, right? No, it didn't. But so you can kind of read that. And then the last one, somebody in here, I think, drew the cutest little picture of this, and they put a fish down in the. I just love it, little fish swimming in there. Anyway, yeah, they have plate tectonics on those icy moons, but it's different than our plate tectonics in that it moves on liquid water instead of liquid plasma. Okay. All right, so I'm going to.